In the headlines this evening, North Korea fires 2 short-range ballistic missiles into the East Sea early Monday. South Korea says Pyongyang's action is a clear violation of UN resolutions and vows to counter future provocations. President Park Geun-hye begins her trip to the Middle East with a visit to Kuwait. She will seek to forge stronger economic ties as well as secure support for her unification plans. And ahead of this year's Mobile World Congress, Korea's tech giant Samsung Electronics unveils the latest in its Galaxy S series. These stories and more coming right up. Stay with us. Good evening, everyone. This is Early Edition at 6, coming to you live from Seoul. I'm Laah Hyun-kyung.
And I'm Daniel Choy. Thank you for joining us. Well, South Korea was quick to lambast North Korea for firing missiles in a seeming protest against an annual large-scale military exercise by Seoul and Washington.
Well, although South Korea and the U.S. emphasize the exercises are purely defensive in nature, North Korea always condemns them in words and actions as a rehearsal for war.
A back and forth that we hear over and over again.
Yes.
Well, Kim Hyun-bin starts us off.
South Korea's defense ministry condemned North Korea on Monday for firing 2 short-range missiles into the East Sea earlier in the day, calling it a violation of UN resolutions, and warned Pyongyang that it will move swiftly to counter any future provocations. The 2 missiles are presumed to have been short-range Scud missiles, with an approximate range of 500 kilometers. They were fired into the East Sea from the western port city of Nampo. The ministry says the missile firing is probably the North's way of expressing its opposition to the South Korea-U.S. joint military exercises, which kicked off on the same day. Over 10,000 South Korean troops and around 12,000 American troops are taking part in the annual exercise, which consists of 2 parts. Part 1 is the 2-week-long Key Resolve exercise, a computerized command post exercise aimed at enhancing the combined forces' operations and strategy. Part 2 is the 8-week-long Full Eagle field training exercise that aims to enhance interoperability between Korea and the U.S. across all branches of the military during wartime. The annual exercises, which date back to the early 1970s, have long been a source of aggravation for the North, with Pyongyang calling the drills a rehearsal for a northward invasion. Seoul and Washington say the exercises are defensive in nature. Last year, North Korea protested the drills by launching a series of roughly 90 Scud missiles and long-range rockets. Kim Hyun-bin, Arirang News.
Senior diplomats from UN member countries, including South and North Korea, are expected to have a heated debate this week in Geneva over Pyongyang's human rights abuses, and that won't be all on the agenda. Arirang's Connie Kim has more on this story.
The 2 Koreas are likely to have a heated debate in Geneva this week over North Korea's dire human rights situation and the regime's nuclear program. North Korea's Foreign Minister Lee Soo-yong will deliver a keynote speech at the UN Human Rights Council on Tuesday, during which he's expected to condemn the adoption of a UN resolution that calls for the North Korean leadership be referred to the International Criminal Court. Pyongyang has been demanding its human rights record be expunged after North Korean defector Shin Dong-hyuk admitted to falsifying parts of his story about his experiences in a prison camp. However, South Korea will refuse to budge on the issue, as Seoul's Vice Foreign Minister Cho Tae-yeol is expected to call for follow-up measures to the UN human rights resolution during his speech.
Human rights is a very sensitive issue for the North Korean regime. It seems as though North Korea will use all means and efforts to dodge the issue.
The clash is likely to continue during talks over Pyongyang's nuclear program at the Conference on Disarmament. Echoing his comments from the previous UN address, the North Korean minister will almost certainly defend his country's nuclear program by stressing it's necessary for national security.
The nuclear issue will be resolved if and when the threat to our sovereignty and right to life is removed. That means the termination of Washington's hostile policy toward our country.
South Korea's diplomat will likely call for greater international efforts to push the North to give up its nuclear arms. This will mark the first time for a top North Korean diplomat to address the Human Rights Council and the Disarmament Conference. Experts say Pyongyang is desperate to counter the swell of international criticism over its human rights abuses and make the case for its widely condemned nuclear weapons program. Connie Kim, Arirang News.
Well, President Park Geun-hye is now in Kuwait, the first of 4 Middle Eastern countries she plans to visit this week. This is the first time in 8 years that a Korean president is visiting the country. Now there, she aims to expand Korea's economic cooperation with the region beyond the usual oil and construction projects. Arirang's presidential office correspondent Choi Yoo-sun files this report from Kuwait.
Since Korean businesses started winning construction projects in the Middle East in the 1970s, the region has become Korea's largest overseas market for plant construction, generating nearly 40% of total orders received. Korea also depends heavily on oil imports from the Middle East. During her trip, President Park Geun-hye will seek a more diversified and deeper economic cooperation with the region to bring about a new growth engine for the Korean economy. Speaking to reporters prior to departing Seoul, the president said that in preparation for the post-oil era, the Middle East is seeking to diversify its oil-centered industries and improve quality of living through developments in education, healthcare, and infrastructure. She says this fits perfectly in line with her 3-year economic plan to spur growth through innovation and structural reforms.
이번에 이제 제2중동의 붐을 일으키자 하는 거는 그 중동 지역하고 또 국가들하고 한국하고 또 이렇게 인연이 깊은 것 같아요. 우리 다양한 그 기업들이나 이런 데서 가가지고 서로 협력을 할 일이 많아졌죠.
So when President Park meets Middle Eastern leaders this week, she will discuss expanding Korea and the region's economic cooperation to include healthcare, IT, education, and culture. The cooperative relationship will also develop from simply providing the region with labor and infrastructure to sharing knowledge and launching joint ventures. President Park is scheduled for back-to-back meetings with Kuwait's Amir, parliamentary speaker, and prime minister on Monday. While economic cooperation will likely dominate their discussions, President Park also plans to seek Kuwait's support behind the North Korea and unification policies. Choi Yoo-sun, Arirang News, Kuwait City.
A Japanese historian says he hopes his book on the forced mobilization of Koreans during Japan's colonial rule will help restore the dignity of those who suffered. Yasuto Takeuchi told Yonhap News on Sunday that he published the book to coincide with the 50th anniversary of diplomatic relations between Korea and Japan. That's this year. His book was published in late January and contains the personal information such as age, place of work, and place of death of over 10,000 Koreans who were subject to forced mobilization from 1939 to 1945. Takeuchi estimates the number is roughly 1/3 or 1/5 of the Koreans that were killed after being coerced into hard labor or to serve in the military. This is the second time he has published a book like this one. The first was published in 2007.
Shifting gears now, Korea has posted a current account surplus every month for almost 3 years. The Bank of Korea says January surplus amounted to some $7 billion, edging down 80 million from the previous month. It's looking likely that Korea will break its previous monthly surplus streak of 3 years and 2 months, which was set in 1986. It's not all good news, however, as a drop in exports coupled with a bigger drop in imports is driving the current account surplus trend at the moment. Exports dropped 10% in January from the same period last year, while imports plunged almost 17% on the back of falling global oil prices. And Korea's January industrial output dropped by its biggest margin in almost 2 years. Output across the board plunged 1.7% compared to the month before. And the government cites a base effect as the reason for the drop, since December production in the mining and manufacturing sectors shot up by the most in more than 5 years. Koreans' tendency to spend less the month before the Lunar New Year holiday was also a factor, since the holiday fell in February this year. Output in the mining and manufacturing sectors in particular dropped 3.7% in January from a month ago, falling the most since the global financial crisis in 2008. Now, if you're one of those tech heads anxiously awaiting the release of Samsung's new Galaxy S series smartphones, you're in luck. The Korean tech giant unveiled its latest in Barcelona on Sunday ahead of the Mobile World Congress. Our Shin Se-min has this story.
This is Galaxy S6 and Galaxy S6 Edge.
These are the most advanced powerful smartphones in the world, with the capabilities no other phone can match. But that's not all. To use a technical engineering term, they also look really cool.
Could this be a game changer for Samsung Electronics? The specifications certainly do seem to make a strong case for that. Introduced Sunday at the Samsung Unpacked event ahead of the Mobile World Congress in Barcelona, the brand new Samsung Galaxy handsets have a better grip on both design and composition. The Galaxy S6 and S6 Edge, which comes with the curved display, sport a dazzling glass and lightweight metal architecture. Both have a faster processor, a better camera, and most importantly, a fast-charging battery. Samsung ditched a replaceable battery from the S5 and added a wireless feature.
They were the first brand ever to introduce wireless charging that's built in.
It's also much faster. The new Galaxy phones only need a 10-minute charge to offer 4 hours of battery life. Totaling it up, Samsung says it'll take the S6 roughly half the time to charge as the iPhone 6. The phones are also loaded with a mobile payment system called Samsung Pay. Like its Apple counterpart, Samsung Pay uses NFC technology. But unlike Apple, it also has magnetic secure transmission technology developed by LuPay, which allows users to make mobile payments at most places where plastic cards are already accepted. With the flashy new handset duo, the company is hoping to lift its flagging sales and climb back to the top of the global smartphone market after having lost out to Apple last year. Shin Se-min, Arirang News.
Impressive and something to look forward to, definitely. Moving on to other stories, mobile banking has made life much more convenient, but many people still struggle with the crucial first step in gaining access to your account online, authentication. Starting this year, that process could be simplified to just touching your credit card to your smartphone. Reports say Korean financial institutions are preparing to launch the new method, which uses near-field communication technology, starting as early as in the first half of the year. If things go as planned, people won't have to go through the hassle of authenticating each transaction using a security code from their bank.
And staying with smartphones, one noticeable change that they have brought for cartoon lovers here in Korea is the way readers get a hold of their favorite cartoons.
Webtoons or online comic books, the sheer number of them jumped following the industry's boom. I thought we could not have room for more competition, but apparently there's plenty of room for more and more creative stories. Our Kwon So-hwa has this week's industry insight.
Scrolling and touching. Anytime, anywhere. Korea's webtoon market is doing better than ever, spilling into other media like dramas and movies. The industry is expected to be worth some $270 million this year. Webtoon makers are kept extremely busy with loads of original content uploaded every day, and most of it is free.
Back in the day when Koreans had to make do with comics printed in books and magazines like these, they never hesitated to dig into their pockets to buy or even borrow them.
Accessibility used to be key, but that led to the perception that Webtoon should be free.
More platforms charge money now. What attracts people to them is that there are no constraints in regards to their language and/or content.
Webtoon story writer Jeon-seok, who is busy with his real estate serial Realtor, and Lee Jong-bum, whose psychological thriller webtoon Dr. Frost has been turned into a TV drama, agree that the boom helped rookie webtoonists and fostered intense competition, resulting in better overall quality. But the process takes more than major platforms and star webtoonists.
From producing to publication and promotion, we assist artists and decide on which pieces could be developed into dramas or even characters.
On portals, the only way to evaluate webtoons is by the number of hits. A-Comics is a web magazine without comics. We provide information to the general public, not manic fans.
What will take Korea's webtoon industry to the next level? Success overseas.
Before, individuals tried to elbow their way into the global market, but now they have a better chance as the web portals do it for them.
Experts say this year the industry could make its mark on the world stage, but only if it chooses the right themes, gets the translations right, and builds global networks. 권소아, Arirang News.
A one-day entry ban.
Digging deeper, getting to the bottom of stories that impact your life. Talking with you on air and online. Connecting you with experts on the world's most pressing issues. News and current affairs at its best. With Laah Hyun-kyung and Daniel Choy.
Arirang News.
Arirang News.
Arirang News.
On Early Edition at 6.
Korea is planning to invest $285 million this year to enhance the safety of spent nuclear fuel, a 7.7% increase in budget from last year. The Ministry of Science, ICT and Future Planning says the money will be spent on nuclear energy development, radiation technology development, and enhancing the safety of small and medium-sized nuclear reactors. The government plans to continue its development of dry reprocessing methods for spent fuel in which 95% of reprocessed fuel can be recycled. The ministry said it also hopes to come up with plans to replace the country's aging nuclear reactors. Now, in light of last week's two shooting incidents that left a total of 8 people dead, officials are looking to implement stronger gun control regulations. The government and ruling party have agreed on a plan to require all guns to have GPS tracking devices and to ban individuals from carrying small air rifles or live ammunition. Currently, people with gun licenses must store their guns at any police station around the nation, but that will also likely change. The guns will have to be kept at police stations with a jurisdiction over either the gun owner's registered address or the hunting grounds address. The latest incidents have also brought attention to the gun monitoring system. With about 160,000 guns registered in the country, one police officer is responsible for administering about 500 guns, which critics say is too many. A massive crowd gathered in Moscow over the weekend to mourn the death of Russia's opposition leader Boris Nemtsov. Officials are investigating the case, but given the political situation in Russia, there are a fear that those responsible will never be found. Son Jung-in reports.
Tens of thousands of people gathered in central Moscow on Sunday carrying Russian flags and marching alongside the river Moskva. The streets were filled with protesters holding placards that said, "I am not afraid," in memory of Boris Nemtsov, who was shot dead in the shadow of the Kremlin on Friday evening. Meanwhile, CCTV footage has emerged showing the moment of the shooting. The poor resolution video shows 2 people believed to be Nemtsov and his female companion walking across a bridge in central Moscow before a snow truck moves behind the couple to obscure the view of the shooting.
This is not a mere murder, but an act of terror. This is politically motivated, and we need to find the truth behind this terror attack.
Police believe there are 2 suspects involved and have expanded their investigation in search for them. The shooting happened 2 days before Nemtsov was to speak at a major anti-government rally. He was working on a report presenting evidence that he believed proved Russia was directly involved in the conflict in Ukraine, despite official denials from Moscow that it has supplied separatists with troops and weapons.
Boris declared that he would reveal persuasive evidence about the involvement of Russian armed forces in Ukraine.
Russian President Vladimir Putin has described the killing as a provocation and pledged to do everything to find and prosecute the killers and punish them. However, there are fears those responsible will never be found. Nemtsov supporters believe shadowy elements in the Russian government were behind the killing of one of Putin's most prominent critics. 손정인, Arirang News.
Whether you're a fan of the idea or not, implantable ID chips are no longer the stuff of science fiction, at least not for those working at an office complex in Sweden. Chip manufacturers assure us these devices do not harm the body, but there are still concerns. Our Kim Min-ji has the details.
Forget your keys or leave your company ID card at home? That's no longer a problem for workers at Epicenter, a high-tech office complex in Sweden, as workers can now access things with just a wave of their hand. Their key is a 12mm radio frequency identification chip implant.
It felt pretty scary, but at the same time it felt very modern, very 2015.
Employees with the chip implant can get into the office and unlock the photocopier. They can also exchange business cards with people they meet by swiping a hand over their smartphone. Although the chip's functions are limited at this stage, the CEO of the complex expects much more.
Payments is, I think, one area. I think also for healthcare reasons, that you can sort of communicate with your doctor and you can get data on what you eat and sort of what your physical status is.
The chip implant is optional for workers in the office complex. The manufacturer says it poses no harm to the human body and will not set off metal detectors and is also safe during MRI scans. But while it may seem innovative and tech-savvy, some have voiced concerns that it could be an invasion of privacy and pose a threat to a person's security. Kim Min-ji, Arirang News.
Buongiorno or good morning. That's what most of the works by Italian artist Novello Finotti would say if they could speak. His abstract sculptures that celebrate life are on display in Seoul, and our Im-Yoon-hee takes us to that exhibition.
A baby in its mother's womb is a precious symbol of life. This baby is already leaving an imprint on its mother. Verona-born artist Novello Finotti is praised globally for his approach to art, using sculpture to capture life's special occasions and the unique aspects of humanity.
Through a boundless imagination, dreams can embody the hopes of a father. It carries the message of not wanting to wake his precious sleeping daughter.
Finotti takes a modern approach to his work, creating abstract sculptures that echo our world, but also suggest a different part of our lives.
Humans are born on Earth and are reborn again. I wanted to create that flow.
This leg, with a jutting arm holding a pair of lips, is not something you'll see in reality, but it represents a new, mysterious part of our world, a part that Finotti wants to explore. His abstract modern works have captured the imaginations of people from around the world, and now they're catching the attention of Koreans. Buongiorno is Italian for good morning, and that's just what Italian sculptor Novello Finotti's works convey, each sculpture embracing a cherished part of our lives. Im-Yoon-hee, Arirang News.
Let's talk about weather anomalies. We have entered the first month of spring, but I hear
yes.
Right, we have snow in the forecast tomorrow.
Well, some may not like that news, but perhaps it could help clear away some of the dust in the air at least, right? For details, let's turn to our Michelle Park at the Weather Center. Michelle.
Hi guys, and as you mentioned, Pyongyang, the air quality wasn't the best today, but it has mostly cleared up. However, we're expecting rain or snow tomorrow nationwide due to the influence of low pressure front that's coming in from the west side of the peninsula. Now, the rain or snow will start tomorrow morning in the west and the capital regions and will expand nationwide. And it will clear up by tomorrow evening, and Gangwon province can expect between 2 to 7 millimeters, while Seoul and the surrounding regions will be getting about 5 to 20, while the rest of the country down south will see around 5 millimeters. Now, after the rain, temperatures will drop considerably in comparison to today due to the cold air coming down from the north side of the peninsula. And with that in mind, let's have a look at the readings for tomorrow. So we'll start off the Tuesday morning at 1 and gets up high to 5 in the afternoon, while Daegu and Busan will top to 10 and 9 degrees. And moving over to other regions, Jeju Island gets up to 12, Dokdo hits down to 6, while Mankungang dips low to -2 degrees. That's all for now, Michelle Park, and I hope you have a wonderful evening.
Thank you for that, Michelle. Well, that does it for us. Have a great start to your day or a safe drive home. This has been Daniel Choy.
And I'm Laah Hyun-kyung. We'll be back at the same time tomorrow. Goodbye for now.